Hello. Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Bit of a weird Wednesday here to be seeing me streaming today. How is everyone? I was having fun breaking my website at last minute, coding up a new starting soon screen, and it broke things. Yay. We might be joined by Poppy, I don't know. She is wandering around. Hello, Mem. Welcome in. Hello, YGY. How are you? Stardrop. Hello, hello. Monday and you're here. Not Monday and you're here. Well done. Yeah, and I'm streaming. And it's only just gone 4 o'clock. Weird. It's the game that we're playing today. So yeah, I was literally like cobbling together the starting soon screen based on the intro footage for this game. Well done, you as well. Thank you, Stardrop. And yeah, it was just a small update to my website, so it shouldn't break anything, right? But somehow I'd managed to break the music setup that I did recently. Like I overhauled how it plays music, and that meant it wouldn't start. And yeah, I don't exactly have a full-on CI/CD pipeline to manage my website. It's kind of just I rebuild it, I tear down the old one and replace it with a new one. So if the new one doesn't start, then there is no website. Maybe that's something I could fix, like just practice my craft, but it's not exactly high priority. But yeah, what do we have today? So, we have a game. It has gameplay elements, but it is not just strictly, a game. It is a interactive multimedia CD-ROM experience. So it's called Weird. PC Format presents Weird, Close Encounters of the Weird Kind. To enter the bonkers world of Weird, pop your CD into the drive. If you're using Windows 3.1, then run install 31exe. If you use Windows 95 or 98 and autorun is disabled, you'll need to run install 95exe. If you have problems with DirectX, then run safe 95exe. So, when things started coming out on CD-ROMs, not only was it then popular for PC magazines to include a CD-ROM of shareware or what have you on the cover, it was also popular to try and find ways to use up the awesome 650 megabytes of space that you can find with a CD-ROM. And, people had encyclopedias like Encarta and pre-rendered puzzly walkthrough games like Myst, where you were in a 3D rendered environment that had been pre-rendered on a much more powerful computer, and then a bunch of snapshots basically would let you walk through the place, Google Earth style, if you will. And people were like, "Oh, what can we put on this? We can make video now. We can make video and audio and put it on the CD and have computers play the video. What a novel concept!" And the video was grainy and compressed to hell, but it was there. So Weird is like this sort of mishmash between a Myst-like environment that you explore and you slowly unlock areas by completing puzzles, plus an encyclopedia of short stories, anecdotes, blurry photographs of weird encounters like aliens or ghosts. You know, it's not rigorously fact checked and cited. You will have some stuff where it's just, there was this guy and he said he saw this ghost one time. Whoa, how weird is that? But it's entertaining, you know? It's, if you can suspend your disbelief a little bit and go through this, and there's a lot of it. I will say that we're going to be doing this for several weeks, so it's going to be a little Wednesday slot of weirdness. Storytelling has come a long way. I don't know, Stardrop. It's pretty compelling. I had a lot of fun exploring this and unlocking it all back in the day. There are some puzzly elements that are kind of annoying. You know, you've got like your Simon Says puzzle. I'm sure we'll encounter that soon enough. But it's just sort of gating off the content so you can't just binge it all at once. And that's fine. And I'm going to have to do a lot of reading. So I don't know if each of these Wednesday streams is going to be like 2 hours long. I might need to limit how much I'm talking, because there is a lot of text. They'd learned how to do audio voiceovers and full motion video, but they didn't quite have enough room to just go nuts on this, or enough production budget, and have everything be voiced. So there's a lot of text I'll be reading. And we'll just see how I go. I think it will be nice for us to go through this stuff together. I had some scratches behind me. Oh yes, hello Poppy. She's just on the bottom of the camera there. I haven't bothered to put my hair up today. Oh, she's moved. Yeah. What do you mean? Up there. I will... Some bickies there, don't you? We feed the cat. Feed the cat some bickies. She will get increasingly hungry as we approach 5 o'clock, so that's going to be interesting to deal with too. And then you decide to look out the window, you can... And later we'll have dinner, okay? Later dinner? Yes? Alright. So, we got past the technical difficulties. We have a cat. She's been on the stream. This is a legitimate, valid stream now. Game. Where's the game? Well, let's watch the intro, because the intro explains everything. And I'm running this in QEMU with Windows 95 in it. It's a bit slow, but it's good enough for this. And there you have it. Hold any questions you have till the end. I'm sure that explains everything anyway. So we're here, and we have a little cursor that's like an eyeball. And most of the time you're just kind of scrolling or jumping between the views. Got some doors, and there is a map here. So we're in the corridor right now. And there's other areas that we can unlock as we go through. How do I have to go back and turn the map off? Yeah. So some of the areas, if I recall correctly, are locked. So I think all of these ones on the left are locked. Yeah. Sorry, all of these ones on the right are locked. Or they're on the right now. As you come in. And this door as well. There's only two that we have access to, so I guess we'll start with this one. Oh, no, I didn't want to go there. I want to... It's a very nice wall, yep. We'll go up the ladder. Gotta click a bunch of times. Realistic ladder climbing. There's just some soft background watery noises. Let me know if it's too quiet. We'll probably wait until we actually have some sort of video or audio to listen to with actual talking on it to fine-tune the audio balance here. Which of course I should have done ahead of stream. And I didn't. So there's that. So we're in a water-themed area. And we've got this weird thing, and it's got a bunch of doodads on it, and each of them has something to say. The expression, "It's raining cats and dogs," is a well-known, yet rather strange saying. More accurate, perhaps, would be a saying, "It's raining fish and frogs," as there have been several occasions throughout history when such bizarre showers really have taken place. Most common of all the strange showers, or fretfrotskis as they are sometimes referred to, would be the fishfall, which has been written of for well over 1,000 years. Athenaeus was one of the first to chronicle such occurrences, writing of a fish shower in the Chersonesus district of Greece that lasted for 3 whole days. In 1833, at Phutpur, India, nearly 4,000 dried fish were said to have fallen from the sky, remarkably all of the same species. India seems to be particularly blessed with such occurrences, as the Journal and Proceedings article of the Asiatic Society of Bengal reported a case where a tennis court was completely covered by a white sheet of fish in a shower near Muzaffarpur. Numerous other such showers have been reported all over the world, though particularly in the United States, India, Germany, Australia, and Britain. A most ardent researcher of this strange phenomena was writer Charles Fort, the inspiration for the excellent Fortean Times. He suggested that there was a super-geographical pond in the atmosphere which occasionally leaked its fishy contents into our world. More common is the theory that such falls are a result of whirlwinds that have scooped up the fish from the sea and emptied their loads over the land with when their power waned. This theory does not take into account all the cases which have occurred so far away from any sea areas or from clear skies. Nor does it explain the selective nature of the showers, as they usually only contain one type of animal, such as a particular species of fish or frog. Oh no, is this the Super Sargasso Sea? I've heard of that. Interesting. Yeah, obviously, we haven't spotted it with any of our modern satellite technology, but clearly there's some sort of lake just floating up there in the atmosphere. Adjust the bobby cam. Did you see the way she was looking at me? That is the look of a ravenous fiend. When do you usually feed her? Dinner time is at 5 o'clock, Stardrop. And she knows this, but also she sometimes confuses it with 4 o'clock. I have an alarm set on my phone that will produce a particular noise, and we've somehow gotten into this kind of Pavlovian conditioning. I don't know which one of us is being conditioned, probably me. The phenomenon of crosses that range from the sky many centuries ago is difficult to assess because of the possible allegorical interpretation that could be given. Certainly, the fact that the crosses that were said to have fallen in 1094 landed on the robes of priests suggests either a religious fable or miracle rather than natural phenomenon. Phenomenon. As does the report of crosses falling in Germany and Belgium, significantly but just before Easter. Sadly, meteorologists suggest a rather more mundane explanation for crosses falling from the sky when they point to the natural formation of cross-shaped hailstones, which, when falling, could give the impression of a rather more spiritual shower. Either there is an unknown breed of super frog that can leap for miles, usually with several hundred friends, or the weather has a peculiar habit of occasionally raining frogs down on an unsuspecting public. Hordes of frogs appearing from the sky have been reported by both historical and contemporary writers. Well over 1,000 years ago, Athenaeus wrote in the Delphonosophists of a rain of frogs that was so heavy that some people could not get out of their doors. In 1969, newspaper columnist Veronica Papworth told how her home had been caught in a deluge of thousands of tiny live frogs raining through her open windows when a sudden storm appeared. As is usually the case, the frogs discovered in the fall tended to be small and very young. Such large quantities are not that rare. In 1939, the London Times reported a shower of live frogs in Wiltshire that was so heavy that people could not walk through the streets without treading on them. A more bizarre frog fall occurred in Gloucestershire, England, in 1987, when a shower of several pink frogs came down to earth, later discovered to be native to the African desert. Sand from the Sahara, discovered in surrounding areas, suggested that the frogs had been swept across the world by freak winds. Pink is not the only unusual colour to have adorned such falling frogs, as a shower of almost white frogs was reported in Birmingham, England, in 1892. probably noticed 5 o'clock randomly changes by an hour occasionally in hopes for the best. Pets get so mad at daylight savings time, and I'm with them. It's stupid. It's dumb. But my theory is that she's actually on a 23-hour internal clock. Let me just release grab for a second and adjust my window for better reading. There we go. Incidents involving mysterious showers of stones raining down on people do not fit so exclusively into the category of falls from the skies as do fish or frogs. Opinion is divided as to whether these disturbing occurrences are quirks caused by freak weather conditions, or some form of poltergeist activity, largely due to the fact that they appear to be more targeted than other strange showers. Probably the most famous case of stone showers occurred at Thornton Road in Birmingham, England. 5 houses in this street were mysteriously bombarded with stones over a period of a year between 1981 to 2. Yet, despite intensive efforts by the police force, nobody was ever caught throwing the stones, an amazing feat if it was the work of human hands, considering the vast amount of surveillance the houses were put under, including the use of infrared scopes and automatic cameras. Chief Inspector Thurley confessed to being completely baffled by the case, which took up over 3,500 hours of his men's time investigating it. When the stoning eventually stopped, nobody was any the wiser as to the reason or method of the stoning. This was no new phenomenon, however. A similar case was recorded as long ago as AD 858, when a small German town called Bingen was exposed to a similar ordeal, and the peace was similarly interrupted in 1821 in Truro, Cornwall, when a house in Carlow Street became the focus of another stoning. The London Times recorded that the heavy stones fell straight from above and were not fired from any side. The showers continued for several days, despite the close observation of the local militia. Such occurrences are clearly not confined to the past, as the recent case in Sărălești, Romania shows. Here again, stones inexplicably rained down on the roof and windows of houses in the town, leaving the local policemen completely baffled. I hate rolling forwards, but when we rolled back recently, I stayed up late and then woke up feeling inexplicably well rested. Weird. It was a while before I realized the clocks had gone back. Early instances of the SimCity disaster menu. Oh, Stardrop. What if we are living in SimCity? And all of this, especially 2020 going forwards, has just been a bored game player adding various disasters and plagues. We're living in SimCity, somebody's losing, yeah. How about eels? The very idea of being caught up in a shower of dead eels is enough to make the skin crawl, but such showers really do happen according to witnesses at Hendon, Sunderland, England. In 1918, they saw a shower of 3-inch-long sand eels there that lasted for 10 whole minutes. They subsequently discovered the eels to be quite rigid, suggesting they had been dead for some time. A similar bizarre event had been experienced by the people of Coalburg, Alabama, in 1892. What about blood? There have been several historical reports of rains of blood falling, mainly related to some form of religious sign. Some supposed rains of blood, however, have rather more down-to-earth explanation. In 1608, locals at Aix-en-Provence attributed to the appearance of several red spots on their houses to the blood of the devil that must have rained down on them as some form of curse. Monsieur de Périzac was not so sure, and after investigating the phenomenon, he concluded that the marks were indeed the secretions of a huge quantity of large tortoiseshell butterflies that had flown overhead at the time. Such rains of blood were known to spread panic among those witnessing them. In Mongolia in 1928, such a rain coincided with an outbreak of dysentery and was taken as a sign of displeasure from the heavens by the local folk who fled in terror. It was in fact caused by red clay being sucked up by a cyclone and then tinting the rain as it fell. Most cases of red rain have been given similar natural explanations, such as the rains that fell in England and Wales in 1968, which were tinted red by the presence of sand that had been flown from the Sahara. Not all such reports are so easy to explain, however. In 1876, many people saw what turned out to be flakes of meat falling in a field in Kentucky, and in 1968, Brazilian newspapers carried reports of meat and blood inexplicably falling near Cocpava. Equally puzzling was the discovery of red rain at Messingaldi, Calabria, in 1890. Experts studied it and subsequently declared it to be the blood of birds. Their theory was that the birds had been torn apart by a violent wind seemed dubious, as there had been no such wind recorded at that time, and no other remains found. Just blood. Weird. Ooh, money. Forget pennies from heaven. Thousands of 1,000 franc notes showered onto the ground at Bourges, France, in 1957 and 1976. The Bath Chronicle told of two clergymen who discovered thousands of German marks fluttering down from the skies. A veritable windfall indeed. Money falling from the clouds must be everyone's dream, yet there have been several cases of such dreams coming true, though unfortunately not usually in significant quantities, and in a way much more likely to cause a nasty gash than a life of luxury. Hang on a minute, this game is educational. We've been tricked. Ha ha ha. It's the Encarta mind maze all over again. Oh, there will be a maze, Stardrop, don't worry. There will be a maze. On the 20th of May, 1981, visitors to St. Elizabeth's Church, Reddish, in England, might have been startled by the gentle tinkle of several coins that mysteriously fell from nowhere. No practical explanation could be found for the strange bounty, although interestingly, some were found to be actually embedded in the ground, a feat that could only have been achieved if they had come from a great height. A similar incident occurred some years later in another churchyard in England. Forget Las Vegas, better visit your local church instead. And we're back to the fish. We take this little rock path around there now. Fish! Fish! The Kraken! Norwegian legends of the Middle Ages told of a giant sea beast as the Kraken, known as the Kraken, that was so huge it would sometimes fall asleep and be mistaken for an island, leading unsuspecting sailors to climb upon it, only to drown when the beast awoke and return to the deep. Many old accounts of the Kraken attacking ships still exist, largely due to the work of French naturalist Pierre Denis de Montfort, whose personal crusade was to prove to the world that such creatures really did exist. In the late 18th century, Captain Jean Magostin told of how some of his crew were actually dragged to their doom by a creature he claimed had tentacles 35 to 40 feet long that snatched them as they were cleaning the side of the ship. De Montfort also recorded the case of a creature seen along the West African coast, where a sailing ship was said to have been attacked by a monstrous cuttlefish that slung its arms about two of the masts until the ship had nearly capsized. Only the gallant efforts of the crew and the power of prayer were said to have saved them all from certain death. A picture depicting the event was painted and kept in the chapel of St. Malo, France. Later, in the 19th century, the crew of the steamer named Strathworn claimed to have witnessed a 150-ton schooner, the Pearl, being capsized by a similar beast. Not the Pearl! They told of seeing a giant tentacle almost casually pulling it over, killing all of its crew. The men of the French gunboat Alecton were luckier when they encountered a large tentacled creature in 1861. They actually managed to kill it with a harpoon, but its body broke up before they could get it ashore. How convenient. Long ago, the existence of the kraken was taken so seriously that it had been given its own classification, Sepia microcosmos, by the pioneer of such classifications, Linnaeus. Many scientists now, however, are more dubious of the existence of the massive kraken of legend. Ooh, I can't mute while my hotkeys are captured. One moment. Many zoologists believe the legendary beast, said to be a mile and a half across, was actually a giant squid of the genus Architeuthis, which can grow to about 50 feet long. These are frightening enough, with long tentacles bearing powerful suction cups and retractable talons, and huge sharp beaks concealing rows of teeth with which they voraciously eat meat. One of the largest was discovered lying beached at a place called Thimble Tickle in 1878. It had a body 20 feet long, tentacles 35 feet long, eyes that were a massive 18 inches across, and suckers that were 4 inches in diameter. What size, then, would be the beast that left sucker marks 18 inches in diameter on the skin of a whale, seen by naturalist Ivan Sanderson? Many other such whales have been found with sucker marks, a legacy of battles between the two arch-enemies, and it is this enmity that experts believe may be responsible for the reports of some boats being attacked. It has been suggested that the giant squids responsible for such attacks may have mistaken the boats for sperm whales. So, are the scientists correct? Was the island-sized kraken of legend really a giant squid? The discrepancies in size are certainly huge, but there are enough tantalizing morsels of evidence to suggest that there may well be such creatures under the sea, larger than we can dream of. Well, that's ruddy mysterious. How about this? I can't read that. Oh, there we go. Oh, hello. Here we go. Let's put my ring light on, shall we? Psychokinesis, the ability to influence objects with the power of the mind, has been taken very seriously by some parts of the American military establishment. In the 1970s and 80s, they conducted several experiments to gauge the effect of psychokinesis as a potential military application, and in the mid-1970s, a group called the United States Psychotronics Association was set up as a reaction to fears that Russia was starting to use psychotronic warfare against the United States. Lieutenant Colonel Thomas E. Bearden believed that the loss at sea of the nuclear submarine Thresher was caused by a Soviet experiment with a device that could amplify this mental power. Bala Lake, The largest natural lake in Wales is a place of many legends, most notably that of the old town lying submerged beneath it. It is also said to have a most interesting resident, the lake monster known as Teggy. It was sighted in the 1970s when the lake warden David Bowen saw a grey crocodile-like beast about 8 feet long. A more recent sighting, however, described it as looking more like the Loch Ness Monster. I'm going to boost the game audio a little, because they do have little incidental bits of music here and there. And when we do get to something that's actually voiced, I don't want to be fiddling around with the controls. Okay, now that's another hatch going down. Let's look at that after we've looked at the other things in this place, because I think that might give us another area. The most unlikely of flesh-eating creatures, a sponge, has been discovered in a cave deep beneath the Mediterranean. Reports suggest that cases of skinny dipping in the area have strangely decreased. Yeah, don't mess with sponges. They're terrifying. Okay, we're at the back of that whirly thing. Oh, it's running crosses. Hallelujah. What's this then? Sea serpents. With all the reports of mysterious beasts lurking in relatively tiny lakes all over the world, it should come as no surprise that there have been so many sightings of unidentified creatures in the vast expanses of sea that exist. We are still discovering many life forms in these seas, such as the coelacanths, which was previously believed to be long extinct, or the recently recognized megamouth shark, which no one even knew existed. It is fair to assume, then, that there are still many more zoological discoveries to be made at sea. Reports of sea serpents have been with us for centuries, often from numerous respectable witnesses. Way back in the 16th century, Archbishop Olaus Magnus published a book that described a huge sea serpent that was black, with a mane. The mention of a horse-like quality recurs on several occasions over the centuries. A well-known encounter with another maned serpent was recorded in 1848 in the South Atlantic by the crew of HMS Daedalus, when some of them saw a snake-like creature estimated at over 60 feet long, traveling alongside them at great speed for about 20 minutes. Captain Peter McQuay's account was published in the London Times and aroused much interest from the Admiralty. A horse-like head was attributed to a 100-foot-long serpent in Gloucestershire Bay, England, in the early 19th century. The dark brown beast was described as having about 30 humps, far more than your average lake monster, and the Gloucestershire Telegraph told of how one boatman actually took a shot at it. Another brush with a mysterious sea beast took place more recently, in 1959. Tex Geddes and James Gavin were in a fishing boat off a small island near Scotland when they saw what one of them described as a hellish monster of prehistoric times coming towards them with a reptilian head and a large red mouth. Fortunately, they escaped unscathed, as did another group who had such a close encounter. In 1983, a construction crew was working near Stinson Beach, USA, when one of them noticed a huge eel-like thing, about 100 foot long, hurtling towards them through the water. It got so close that Safety Inspector Marlene Martin could see its teeth. She described it as a snake-like dinosaur with red eyes. Her recollection that it undulated up and down rather than sideways like a snake is another common factor in many descriptions of beasts of this type. Sadly, none of the team got a chance to take a picture, as is usually the case in sightings since the advent of photography. Photographic evidence could help explain many sightings. Suggestions that the crew of Daedalus might really have seen a long string of seaweed, or that Geddes and Gavin had seen a giant sea turtle, could then either be confirmed or discounted. In 1964, however, a very impressive photograph of what looked like a sea monster did appear, taken by Frenchman Robert Le Serec in Stonehaven Bay, Australia. He claimed that Henk de Jong and himself had gotten within 20 feet of the beast when it attacked them. Experts have unfortunately expressed some doubts about the authenticity of the photo, however, largely due to the claim that Le Serec had tried to finance his journey by mentioning the huge monetary rewards that would be on offer on investing in a trip that could be associated with the discovery of a sea serpent. Wonder what she's waiting for. It is the lack of truly authentic evidence of such sea serpents that has made them so fascinating to many for such a long time. After all, we know that there are huge creatures alive in the sea, whales being the largest mammals on Earth, and we know that the most bizarre beasts imaginable, and then some, exist in the oceans. Who would believe in the existence of such an unusual creature as the octopus without the physical evidence that we have at our disposal? Like so many mystery animals, it would be almost disappointing if we do someday solve the question, do they or don't they exist? Alright, let's see where this hatch goes. Going down. Ooh, a dark, ominous passageway. What's this?
In 1795, when young Daniel McGuinness stumbled upon a strange indentation on the ground of Oak Island, he could have had no idea that what he had just uncovered would turn out to be one of the most baffling of mysteries, a mystery that would remain unsolved to this very day. For many years, there had been numerous stories about Oak Island, the sort of stories that were bound to tug at the natural inquisitive impulses of the young and curious. Eerie stories of mysterious lights seen burning through the fogs that so frequently descended upon the area. Ideal conditions to mask the illicit activities of the pirates that were believed to have used the island for their own nefarious ends. Youngsters nearby were deterred from visiting the island by spooky tales of phantom pirate watchmen, the grisly remains of those left behind to guard their booty, and the chilling howls of the ghostly black hounds also said to roam the isle. Anxious parents would stress that two fishermen who had been foolish enough to investigate these sights and sounds were never to be seen again, almost challenging the youthful bravado of Daniel and his friends. The creaking remains of an old block and tackle swinging from a dark oak tree alerted him to the disturbed ground that marked the spot. Nothing so plain as a cross marked the spot there. The pick marks in the hard clay ground, and the stone of a kind that was alien to the island, were the first telltale signs that this was an enigma fashioned by strange foreign hands, and the layers of carefully laid coconut matting, another substance foreign to the isle, and putty, were to suggest handiwork more akin to that of regal Egypt than the rough-hewn hands of drunken pirates.
Okay, that was still a bit quiet even for me. I wonder... what's the volume set within the VM? Ah. Fine for you? Okay, well, I'll boost it anyway, because then I can reduce it in OBS. Ding! Now let's just go max. And pull that down just a tad. Alright, here we are, depth in feet. The phone is about to go off as we are about to reach a particular time of day. What we might do is, you know, dig through some of this rock a little bit. Ooh, what have we found here? Welcome to the Money Pit, an ancient great gateway to untold treasure that has claimed the lives of many who have tried to recover its fortune. Situated on Oak Island, off the southern coast of Nova Scotia, this marvel of engineering continues to frustrate the most ardent efforts to get to its bottom and unearth the treasure chests that many believe lie here. Nova Scotia, Oak Island. Excellent timing, Stardrop, for the Bother Cat redeem. Meow, really? What did you say? I didn't hear you. Meow? Is it dinner time? Well, I don't think she'll be particularly bothered to have her dinner. Yes? Is it dinner time? Dinner time? Yes. So let's pull ourselves out of the game. Meow, really? Okay. Meow, meow, yes. Is it dinner time? Unfortunately, we don't have audio on the puppy cam. It's one of my to-do things. But we can go to just chatting. There we go. Come along. Dinner time. There we go. Om nom nom. A bit of window staring now. Is Poppy able to regulate her own eating if she's left food? Or is she the sort of cat to scoff it all down? It depends. For a little while, I was able to just give, leave biscuits out, and it was fine. She would just graze at her own leisure. And then she got into a sort of habit of like, well, okay, I'm just going to eat it all, and then ask for more. So, yeah, then I stopped doing that, and I was like, okay, no, you can't have more. This is all you're getting. And that didn't work, because she was just yelling insistently that she was starving to death, and she was but skin and bones. But what I then put it back to be like, okay, I'll just keep a little bit of biscuits on her plate at all times, and she can help herself. And then she's gotten back into the mentality of like, well, okay, the plate isn't empty, so food is available, you know, I'm not going to starve. And she's better now at managing her own intake. But that only applies to the dry food. Wet food, she would eat until there is nothing left in the universe. Yeah. Where'd she go? Might be going to do her business, so I'll just drink some tea. Game scene. And let's go down to 20 feet. Nobody knows who was responsible for building the shaft, but the complex nature of its defenses suggests that it must have taken some considerable time and effort to achieve, not the sort of task that would have been undertaken without good cause. I think the unlock a random sub-emote redeem might be broken. If you do it multiple times, the animation cycles through only the remaining ones, but then it can still settle on one that's already been selected. Honestly, it's been so long since I've used the random version that I wasn't aware that there was an animation. I know I haven't completely filled out all of my emote slots yet, because there's some animated slots that I haven't filled in since they added the extra animated ones. Maybe it's broken because it's assuming you've got all of them unlocked, that you as a streamer have all of them unlocked and in use. Dunno. Yep, don't know where the puppy cat is, and I don't have cameras in the bathroom, so we are unable to spy on her current location. I'm going to have a biscuit, because I got these very nice digestive biscuits with my tea. So please excuse the munching noises. Ah, okay, Star Drop. I thought that was like some sort of scrolling emotion animation or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's Twitch. Twitch breaks sometimes. I really wish that they would let us use sub points to unlock the animated emotes, because they added a whole bunch of them, but they're still in their own special class of like, we added animation as an ability, but we didn't backport it to all of these other functions that the Twitch emote picker has. Same with the follower-only emotes. Like, they added the ability for followers to use emotes in the channel, and that's cool. And okay, I get that they're not letting you, as a follower of my channel, use my emotes in other people's channels unless you're a sub. But they could at least let you unlock the follower emote with the channel points the same way that you unlock a sub emote, and then use it in someone else's channel, if you follow me. It's just kind of this weird mishmash of all these different systems, and they haven't gone and fixed things up so that it's nice and clean and understandable to someone who hasn't been on Twitch since all of these things were added. Alright. More talking. More reading things. Look, see, it's an actual picture. This is a thing that actually exists. The oldest theories claimed that its most likely architects were pirates who built the shaft to conceal their booty. The infamous Captain Kidd himself has been put forward as a prime contender. Kidd was a most successful pirate and must have amassed a quite considerable fortune before eventually being found guilty of piracy and subsequently hanged in London in 1701. That must have been a short trial. Pirate Captain Kidd, guilty of piracy. Yep, okay. I mean, look at him. He's definitely a pirate. This is a neat little border. I wonder if I could steal that for some sort of overlay. Trouble is, if I use my print screen key at the moment, it's shoving it into the Windows VM. I can always rip it from my stream. Charts found in an old chest that he had once owned led some to believe that he had buried his treasure on a small island that could well have been Oak Island. One man, Gilbert Hedden, used the charts to try and find Kidd's treasure on the island. Wreck, there's the Great Hill, some mountains, Death Valley, there's the other hill, there's some more wrecks, rocks, coral banks. Following the directions led him to an unusual boulder that had been drilled through, possibly as some form of marker. This subsequently led him to a stone triangle, which pointed towards the money pit. Detailed investigation into the history of the charts suggested that the discovery of the markers and the pit must have been just an extraordinary coincidence. But can that really have been the case? Ooh, yeah, look at that. That's a rock with a hole in it. Pretty strange. I might need to attend to Poppy one moment. One moment, please. And we're back. All is well. So what's this? One expert has stated that such a complex creation as the Money Pit would have been beyond mere pirates, and suggested it could have been the work of British naval engineers to store funds for their campaign during the American Revolutionary War, while the enigmatic Knights Templar or even the Incas are also candidates according to other theories. The Oak Island Mystery, The Secret of the World's Greatest Treasure Hunt, by Lionel and Patricia Fanthorpe. Text is a little blurry. It began innocently enough. In 1795, 3 boys discovered the top of an ancient shaft on uninhabited Oak Island in Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia. The boys began to dig, and what they uncovered started the world's greatest and strangest treasure hunt. 200 years of courage, back-breaking effort, ingenuity, and engineering skills have so far failed to retrieve what is concealed there. The Oak Island Curse prophesizes that the treasure will not be found until 7 men are dead and the last oak has fallen. That last oak has already gone, and over the years, 6 treasure hunters have been killed. What can the treasure be? Theories include Drake's plate and jewels, Captain Kidd's blood-stained pirate gold, an army payroll left there for safety by French or British military engineers, priceless ancient manuscripts, the body of an Arif or other religious refugee leader, the lost treasure of the Templars, and part of the ancient, semi-legendary Arcadian treasure linked to the mystery of Glosel and René Chateau in France. After years of research, the authors have finally solved the sinister riddle of Oak Island, but their answer is challenging, controversial, and disturbing. Something beyond price still lies waiting in the labyrinth. Lionel Fanthorpe is a world authority on unsolved mysteries and the paranormal. His research into the Oak Island Money Pit goes as far back as 1972, when he was lecturing on unexplained phenomena for Cambridge University's Board of Extramural Studies. Okay, I think I managed to mute it in time. That's good. One of my little Arduino projects will be to actually add the VU meter and what is effectively a button on my microphone here. Not this microphone button for muting, because that makes a clicky noise when I mute it. Who wants a mute button that is on the microphone itself that goes click? Mine will be touch sensitive, and the way I implement it should allow me to sidestep this whole keyboard grabbing thing that's going on here with the VM. He is well known as a prolific writer, lecturer, and broadcaster in this field, and was a special guest speaker at the Oregon Science Fiction Convention in 1993 and 1994. Patricia Fanthorpe contributes the accurate and efficient research capabilities which their kind of work demands. Married since 1957, Patricia and Lionel have 2 daughters and live in Cardiff, Wales. Just promoting their book. René Le Chateau by Lionel and Patricia Fanthorpe. Its mysteries and secrets. René Le Chateau is one of the most mysterious places on Earth. Buried treasure and unsolved murders, hints of dark supernatural powers, codes and ciphers on parchments and ancient tombstones, ingenious clues concealed in statues and paintings, enigmatic priests who controlled immense wealth, suggestions of strange secret societies whose members may still keep their sinister watch among the dense forests and limestone caves of Razez. At least one knowledgeable investigator believes that Rene conceals a doorway to the invisible. Others think that its unique geography and topography may indicate some timeless cosmic enigma. In and around Rennes-le-Château are Visigothic churches and Cathar castles, Templar fortresses, and Roman gold mines. There are persistent legends of great antiquity which link Rennes-le-Château with Mary Magdalene, with Lazarus, with Joseph of Arimathea, and the Holy Grail. There are also tenuous but significant links between the legendary treasure of Rennes-le-Château and the mysterious money pit on Oak Island, just off Chester in Nova Scotia. In fact, there are so many fascinating ideas to explore, and such a plethora of twisting passages complicating the Rennes labyrinth, that, while the authors do offer their own conclusion, they are equally happy to lay a wide range of possibilities between the reader and invite him or her to bring in the verdict. The Reverend Lionel Fanthorpe, B.A., FBIM, FCP, was lecturing on unexplained phenomena for Cambridge University's Board of Extramural Studies in 1975, when he and Patricia made their first exploratory visit to Rennes-le-Château. After 7 years' study and research, their first book on the subject, The Holy Grail Revealed, The Real Secret of Rennes-le-Château, was published first by Newcastle Press and then by Borger Press of California in 1982. A further 8 years of research have gone into the present volume. Here we go, actual video.
I think we've got to go back a very long way for this. And I also think that it has possibly been done by a group of people acting over the years, one after the other. We may be going back 1,000 years BC to Phoenician times, when the earliest sailors managed to cross the Atlantic, came through the Mediterranean. I also think that there's a lot of mileage in the Welsh gold mines theory, that the Welsh, the early Celts, were known to have crossed the Atlantic, and there was a mine at a place called the Ogilvy mine at Pumsaint in Wales, and it was mined by the Romano-Welsh in the 5th century. When the Roman Empire collapsed in Britain, it's possible that a group of Romano-Welsh miners went across and did the work on Oak Island, or at least did the foundations of the work. The reason that we suggest that is that the Pumsaint mine, the Ogilvy mine, has got a watercourse which has been cut 7 miles through a mountain, and it also has tunnels which miners can walk through, triangular tunnels, standing on the apex, so the flat base is to the top. So the man could walk through those tunnels carrying a yoke on his shoulders with gold ore in that yoke. Men who can do that sort of work could have cut Oak Island. Roman discipline, Celtic courage, and you've got the Oak Island labyrinth.
Sadly, this was in the days of the ability to have voiceovers and dialogue in your computer games, but no one considered the idea of also including subtitles. That was a little difficult for me to follow, but that is like pumped up the audio all the way. Yes, okay. Further down we go. More video. Let's read this first. The only thing not in doubt is that it is truly a masterpiece of engineering that has frustrated all attempts to conquer it since it was discovered back in 1795. 3 lads set about the task, digging at the disturbed earth beneath an oak tree from which a rope had clearly once been tied. Having dug through a layer of flagstones, they came across the first of many oak panels that were eventually to be discovered. These oak log platforms were laid across the shaft at 10 feet intervals, perhaps to try and trick people that they had reached the bottom of the mysterious shaft, or to make access further down more difficult. They moved this, but could dig no further until they had enlisted more help. Yeah, timber platforms.
There are so many possibilities for what actually lies below the money pit. A fragment of parchment came up bearing the mysterious letters VI. It is possible, one school of thought believes that it's Bacon's original manuscripts proving that he wrote Shakespeare's plays. The Baconian Society are very keen on that one. Certainly there's a possibility that it contains ancient jewels. I don't think it's pirate treasure. I think the whole thing is far too elaborate and difficult for pirates to have done it. It may contain part of the mysterious and ancient treasure which Templars salvaged from Rennes-le-Château when the Order of Templars was destroyed by Philip le Bel in 1307. They were befriended by Prince Henry of Orkney. He, we know, went across to Nova Scotia. Did he take Templars with him? And did the Templars bury some of the treasure from Rennes-le-Château? In which case it is something that's older than Egypt and of possibly unknown power.
Possibly unknown power. Let me have a quick look for Pop, because I think she might be in the bedroom now. And if she is, that's fine. Yep, she's in bed. I will need to develop my infrared camera to be able to follow the cat into the dark, gloomy bedroom. Because if she's in there, it means she's probably a bit annoyed at how bright it is out here and wants a bit of a snooze. So we'll let her have that. Wait, did we watch that one already? O'Connor Mystery. That guy, yeah, 90 feet. A syndicate was eventually formed some years later, and they managed to shift the mud that had accumulated in the pit and remove more of the oak barriers until they reached the 9th such barrier, which was covered by a black stone slab bearing a coded inscription. This was removed and studied. It was not until several years later that a translation of the message on the stone was made. It was believed to state that £2 million were lying beneath it, but there are many doubts as to the authenticity of this, as the original stone went missing for some time, and this message was later used to acquire funding for further exploration of the shaft. Sir, it is Wednesday. Yes, Tsumi. Hello, welcome on in. How are you? I'm streaming 2 days a week now, and I would have made this a more big announcement, but then I had horrible sleeping problems and I didn't. So here we are, first Wednesday stream. This one might be a bit more varied and random than my Monday 7 PM stream. This one is going to be like, you know, if I'm not awake for it, then I might cancel it. Or maybe, like, you know, I'm trying today at 4 PM my time, which is 6 AM UTC, just to see if we can catch people who can't normally catch my streams. Maybe I'll do it later in the evening on Wednesdays, because I don't have to go to work the next day, so I could actually do quite a late night stream. We'll see how it goes. Either way, I think this is more like casual content where I'm doing a lot of reading. It would probably suit a lot of people's VODs experience. We're just going through this encyclopedia of weird, this old 1990s CD-ROM multimedia experience. It's pretty nice. It was beneath the stone that what could have been the most significant of discoveries was made. About 100 feet from the surface, they could feel a hard object below, presumed to be a chest. They retired for the night, excited by the prospect of examining the contents of the supposed chest the next day. Only things didn't quite work out like that. When they returned in the morning, they discovered that the shaft had been flooded. No matter how much water they pumped out, the water level wouldn't drop. The following year, they set about digging a second tunnel that they could burrow into the money pit to drain the water. Unfortunately, this flooded too, almost drowning the unfortunate treasure seekers. This was the last straw, and they gave up their attempts, exhausted both physically and financially. Yeah, you can see on the side profile here, this is clay on either side, and there's probably an aquifer at some level that they dug into, and now it's just going to keep reflooding. Classic Dwarf Fortress problem. Let's have a look at this mysterious stone. Oh, that's right, we don't have any depiction of what was on the stone. More video.
Well, the scale of the operation was so vast that, assuming that they only had simple hand tools, we're looking at a group of well-disciplined and skillful people working there for anything between 10 months and a year. The problem is that there's a limit to the number of people you can have operating simultaneously in a confined space. So we can't hypothesize an infinite number of workers. We can only say, okay, the work face being the size it was, we can have men working in shifts for X, Y, Z hours. And I base my calculations on limited work area and the tools that would have been available at the time. And I don't think it could have been done in less than 12 months, and I don't think it could have been done by less than, let's say, 50 to 100 men. And they'd have had to be well-disciplined, well-organised. It's a stupendous undertaking.
A stupendous undertaking. Many years later, in 1849, another group, known as the Truro Syndicate, set out to discover what was in the pit. After their initial efforts had also been thwarted by flooding, they set up a special drill which would send up samples of whatever it was boring through, telling them what was really down there. When the drill reached the level that the earlier syndicate had believed contained a chest, the drill hit oak, then metal, then oak again, then more metal and oak again. This suggested the discovery of 2 chests full of metal. Another attempt to dig an alternative tunnel and burrow into the money pit was met with similar flooding. It was then that a most amazing discovery was made. This water was seawater, and an intensive search of the island found that the builders of the money pit had actually made 2 tunnels that extracted water from the sea through a complicated system of stone-built drains in a staggering display of ingenuity and effort. The floods that had consistently foiled the plans of the treasure hunters had been no accident. They were part of the pit's defenses, designed for just such a purpose. The water flow was governed by the tide and pressure of earth in the tunnel. If the earth was removed as far as the chests, the water would rise up from the flood tunnel and fill the pit. Welcome in, Dash of Hope. Hi. We're playing a interactive CD-ROM multimedia experience detailing all sorts of weird and spooky phenomena. I think it was a bit irresponsible of those people to drill through what they thought was a chest. Because, okay, sure, if there's bars of gold in there, that's fine. But if there's some sort of parchments, you've ruined it. VI. What could it mean? After numerous unsuccessful attempts, another interesting discovery was made at the end of the 19th century by Frederick Blair. He and his associates managed to get a drill even further down the pit and at a depth of over 150 feet, samples of cement, metal, and parchment bearing the letters V and I were brought up. They had discovered another vault. Much frantic effort ensued, and many more shafts were dug before they too had to admit defeat. Over the years, attempt after attempt has been made to get better of the pit's ingenious defences, but always they have ended with failure, or worse. In 1861, one man was scalded to death when a boiler burst. Another man later died after falling from a pulley, and in 1963, 4 others lost their lives when they were overcome by fumes. 6 lives and millions of dollars have been lost in this money pit, but still, even 200 years after its discovery, it attracts people like a magnet, despite the old curse which prophesied that the treasure would not be found until the last oak had fallen, which it now has, and 7 men had died. Dan Blankenship has devoted the last 30 years of his life to solving the mystery, and came very close to being that 7th casualty. In November 1976, he was 150 feet down a shaft known as Borehole 10X, a hole that had been drilled in 1970 by Blankenship and the Triton Alliance, when he heard a rumble, followed by something heavy hitting some steel above his head. He signaled to his son above to winch him up as quickly as he could, as the rumbling sounds grew louder and louder. Heavy steel tubing then collapsed inward, leaving the shaft where he had been just seconds earlier completely crushed. Some 5 years earlier, an underwater television camera had been lowered down the borehole and brought back pictures of what appeared to be a well-preserved human corpse. Was this the 7th victim that the curse referred to? Or must still one more die before the money pit gives up its secrets? Only time will tell. There's a lot of engineering been put into this.
As efforts continue to reveal the pit's secrets, a frightening thought occurs. Whatever is down there, the pit was made in such a way as to render it nigh impossible to recover, even for those who put it there. What if the marvelously complex work of engineering was made not to prevent mankind getting to it, but to prevent it getting to mankind? A creation of such unspeakable danger or evil that it was decided it must be hidden away in such an intricate manner that nobody, even the architects themselves, would be able to gain access to it. Perhaps at the bottom of the pit lies a Pandora's box that would be best left unopened for all our sakes.
And that was just this one little blinky piece of floor here. This game looks interesting. It is Dash of Hope. It's basically like Myst. Hope you're having a good week so far. It's not too bad, thank you. I have had a lot of trouble sleeping, and there's construction work going on outside during the day, so it's not ideal. But I'm happy to be starting this little Wednesday series here. With this thing that I'm pretty nostalgic about. So there's a lot of these things that are just kind of hidden, and then there's this weird floating TV thing. Let's have a look, shall we?
Point
14 Times is a magazine published in London every month. It's been going now for about 23 years. It's named after an American writer called Charles Fort, who flourished at the turn of the century. And he was the first man to gather together and write down stories of strange phenomena in a coherent way. He spent a lifetime, in fact, trawling through the scientific literature of 2 continents in the British Library, the New York Public Library, and came up with what are now recognised as the first modern tales of UFOs, for example. He gathered together hundreds of examples of frogs that have fallen from the sky, fishes that have come down. He also wrote about what he called wild talents, what we now call psychical phenomena, psychokinesis, poltergeist and so on. But the key thing which he did was he wrote it all down with an open mind and a sense of humour, and that's what 14 Times is still dedicated to doing now. So the magazine doesn't accept absolutely anything that it writes. We don't believe it firmly. We try to exclude known hoaxes, but we don't have the resources or the knowledge to check out everything that we publish, and by definition anything that comes within our purview is likely to have insufficient evidence for it to be proven one way or the other. And that gives us an open-mindedness, hopefully, because the problem with the unexplained is that as soon as you start to adopt a single theory and you believe it firmly, you then exclude evidence that doesn't fit your theory, and that starts making you close-minded, and eventually it turns you into a crank. Now, at 14 Times we have the freedom to publish all sorts of material without believing it firmly, and that means that we can publish stuff which is sounds fairly unbelievable, and we don't have to endorse it. So, for example, recently we've had stories coming out of Africa. Uganda, for example, there's a panic over there about banishing wedding tackle. It's believed that a group of sorcerers are going around stealing people's genitals for use in aphrodisiac potions, and the way they do that is by shaking hands with you. And at the moment you shake hands, your genitals vanish. There's therefore a widespread refusal to shake hands with strangers in Uganda at the moment, and those people who are daring to do it are then surreptitiously going to a corner, sticking their hands in their pockets and just sort of checking that everything is still as it should be. Over on the other side of the country, in Nigeria recently, there was a bizarre case of a serial killer called Alfred John, who claimed that he was a transvestite water goddess who'd been possessed by this Mami water, as a sort of mermaid spirit, and had been compelled by it to kill and suck the blood of about 200 people. We've also had stories from the forests of Central Africa about a madman who's been going to the forest there with a tranquilizer dart gun, shooting gorillas with it, and then while they're out cold he dresses them in clown suits and releases them back into the wild. We could tell similar stories from any continent in the world, really. I mean, Russia is an area where there are a lot of strange things going on at the moment. We had a case recently of a psychic called Alexei Frenkel, who claimed to be the world's greatest psychokinetic. He could move and stop things with the power of his mind, and one day he decided to demonstrate this by walking along a railway track and stopping the Omsk diesel express with his brain power. He was run over by the train and killed, and his assistant apologised to the waiting media and said that sadly Alexei just didn't believe strongly enough today. Britain, of course, is also full of strange phenomena. We cover everything in the UK, from the Loch Ness Monster in the north down to the Beast bombing in the south, and also tales of strange human behaviour. We cover ghosts, miracles, weeping and moving statues, for example, are well on the up at the moment as we move towards the millennium. We've had cases from around the world of statues that weep, shed tears, menstruate in one case from Chile. And also visions of the Virgin Mary in places like Ireland, Romania and Australia recently have been reported. And all this seems to be tied in with what we call PMT, pre-millennial tension, as people start worrying about the end of the world, the prophecies of Nostradamus and so on. So really at the moment, interest levels in reports of strange phenomena are at an all-time high, and it's a great time to be publishing 14 Times.
Man, imagine having your genitals being stolen from a handshake. It's a good excuse to stop people shaking hands, though. You're just gonna spread COVID and shit around if you do that. I really like the whole practice of elbow tapping, and I think we should have stuck with it. Let's see what's up here then. We seem to be in the middle of the ocean? And it's all foggy and misty and stuff? We can go this way, apparently. Stairs? Oh no, it's X. Alright, let's see what's on the X today. On a mortuary slab somewhere in the Ukraine in 1978, a very strange thing happened. The body lying on the slab in question suddenly started moving when the autopsy began. It was alive. The reviving figure was that of Miss Yulia Vorobayeva, who had died of an electric shock. It had suddenly revived at the very last opportunity. Yet the strangest aspect of this story was yet to manifest itself. Having fully recovered from her ordeal, she suddenly became aware that she had acquired an amazing talent. She had X-ray vision. A Ukrainian newspaper, Izvestia, reported that she had discovered her power when she left her house one day and nonchalantly looked across the street at a woman. She recalled, "I was paralyzed with horror. I could see her intestines and straight through her." Once she had grown more accustomed to this ability, she started putting it to good use, and was regularly employed by the hospital at Donsk to help diagnose rare diseases, soon acquiring a reputation for infallibility. There's a dried-up lake on the edge of Death Valley, USA, called Racetrack Playa, that contains a most intriguing mystery. It has rocks that walk. Nobody knows how, but many of the rocks there, some weighing as much as half a ton, have been mysteriously moving, leaving shallow trails behind them. A scientist named Dr. Sharp, who began studying them in 1968, claimed that some have moved as far as 200 feet and beyond, though nobody has yet seen them actually moving. I think I've heard of this. It might not be the same. It might not be the same valley, but this has been explained recently. There's like a frost effect that happens at like early hours of the morning or something like that, but only at some times of the year or something, that's just slightly lifting the rocks and then they're sliding on the slick surface. I think that was the explanation. Or it could be aliens. I mean, it could be like invisible aliens. Also, you can't feel the aliens. Jump scares. There have been many cases of people who have discovered that their bodies contain unusual electric fields, often with uncomfortable or even tragic consequences. Jenny Moran of Sedalia, Missouri, was so highly charged with electricity that anyone who touched her was likely to be knocked senseless in an instant. Her pet cat fared even worse. It was killed by her power when she innocently picked it up. Aww. An even more tragic case was that of a baby that was born in France in 1869 with similarly shocking powers, but with the additional attribute of projecting luminous rays from his fingers. When he died, not yet a year old, his body was said to glow. My friend once, like, when we were living together, came in my room, and he'd obviously scuffed his feet and noticed he was building up a big charge of static electricity. And he said something to the effect of, I'm going to break your computer just by touching it. Because I had it on the floor and I was working on it, and it was powered on. And he just innocently touches the case. And sure enough, to both of our surprises, it suddenly went beep, very loud, and crashed. Yeah, static electricity discharge is a thing, but neither of us would have expected the actual case to discharge like that. Or the computer was fine, it just needed to restart. Yeah, I don't know, different ground potentials or something. Or, it's just, he's a Windows guy and I'm a Linux guy, and we often joked about it, that he had this Windows aura that would break my shit, and I had this Linux aura that would break his shit. Should add this to the Encyclopedia of the Strange here. There can be few more forbidding areas of the world than the Himalayas. Cold and remote, with the icy winds ripping through you, it is easy to imagine how simple it would be to envisage a menacing hulk watching over you as you struggle through its thick carpet of snow. The Abominable Snowman is a dramatic, though inaccurate name that has echoed through all walks of fiction, and this creature, if it exists, would indeed be a dramatic sight to encounter on your travels, if eyewitness accounts are anything to go by. Descriptions seem to vary, with heights between 5 and 15 feet being claimed, and body hair of either reddish-brown or grey. In 1974, a poor Nepalese girl claimed to be attacked by one of the smaller variety while she was watching over a herd of yaks high in the mountains near Everest. She said that it killed some of her yaks in the attack, but she survived to tell her tale, leading police to the scene, where they discovered strange footprints to back up her story. There have been few actual sightings by Western eyes, but Don Willens claimed to have seen the rare beast twice in the Annapurna Sanctuary in 1970, describing it as being very ape-like. Experts believe, however, that this high snowbound terrain is probably not where they generally dwell, the reason being that it is unlikely that a descendant of Gigantopithecus, which many believe it could live in such conditions. This suggests that more than likely they live in the forested regions lower in the valleys, occasionally traveling across the snowy higher areas and leaving the large 14-inch footprints that remain the best physical evidence of their existence. These have been seen by many respected mountaineers, including Eric Shipton in 1951, Edmund Hillary in 1953, and more recently Lord Hunt. It was Hillary's discovery of prints that was to lead to a flurry of treks organized in search of the beast, but little was to come to any of them. He returned from a further expedition in 1960 with a scalp said to be made from the head of an abominable snowman, or Yeti as it is otherwise known. Sadly, scientific analysis suggested that it had been made from the hair of a local goat, rather than anything more exciting. This led to a large shadow of doubt being cast over its existence at the time. Some zoologists believe that most sightings could possibly be cases of mistaken identity, with langur monkeys or even the extremely rare Tibetan blue bear being the most likely of causes. These theories, however, fail to address the excellent photographic evidence of strange and unidentified footprints in the snow, which still point to the existence of some unknown creature roaming those vast Himalayan slopes. This might not be an accurate depiction of said creature. Artists' rendition only. In the tiny town of Silver Cliff, Colorado, sits an eerie little graveyard with a fascinating mystery. The ghostly lights of the Silver Cliff Cemetery have been seen by far too many people since 1880 to doubt their existence, especially since they have featured in no lesser a journal than the New York Times. But what causes them? There is no shortage of theories as to what these glowing blue spots that hover over the tombstones might be, but the belief that they are the helmet lamps of ghostly miners, still searching for the silver that used to be so abundant there, is as good as any. Is there anything on the back of the X.com? Oh yeah, it looks like we've got some other thing here. People really do eat the strangest things sometimes, but Francis Batalina... That wasn't me, that was the game. Took the biscuit, or rather the stone, for he was known as the Stone Eater. From his birth, in the 17th century, he refused to eat any conventional foods, preferring the dubious pleasures offered by stones, a legacy of him being discovered holding such unlikely objects in his tiny hands even when he was born, by all accounts. He would eat several stones each day, to the extent that he could sometimes be heard rattling as he walked along. Without going into too much detail on the subject, it was claimed that once every 3 weeks he would void a great quantity of sand to make more space for his strange cravings. Unusual though Francis' diet may have been, the experiences of John Cummings in 1799 provide a timely cautionary tale for those thinking of partaking in unusual and dangerous feasts. While somewhat the worse for drink one day, he was goaded into swallowing a knife, and having achieved that successfully, another 3 followed. Astonishingly, he survived this exercise, passing 3 of the knives over the following 2 days, and was seemingly none the worse for wear. 6 years later, however, while again on the influence of drink, he decided to show off his knife-eating prowess once more, downing a total of 14 over a 2-day period. He came to regret this when seized by an agonizing stomach pains, but astonishingly survived the experience, though the passing of such a cluster of cutlery could have been no fun at all. Yet he still hadn't learnt his lesson, and on another occasion went on to consume a further 13 knives. Unsurprisingly, this time 13 proved to be a very unlucky number, and after several trips to Guy's Hospital in London, he eventually expired. So don't try that at home, children. It sounds like Francis Batalina suffered from pica, which compels you to eat unusual things. I take back what I said about this game being educational. Yes, that's enough of that background ambience. What's all this then? Ooh, we've got some full motion video. Ooh. Ew, so that was his pile of sand on the ground. I think that's what it was, yes. Okay, so this looks like a way down into further areas of the game. Let's leave that be for the moment. I want to see what's on this thing here. I won't look at it directly. This is a boomerang. Here we go. Oh dear. The vast expanses of, quote, uninhabited, end quote, land in Australia would make an ideal environment for a man-beast to carry out an existence unhindered by mankind. The creature known as the Yowie or Yahoo is reputed to be doing just that. It is said to be similar in many ways to Bigfoot, its counterpart in North America, with its skunk-like ability to emit dreadful smells, feet with 4 toes, and complete lack of a neck. Most sightings, and there have been over 3,000 of them, describe it as being 6 and 7 feet tall, covered with black hair, and having big yellow eyes. The sightings of the beast go back as far as the 19th century, predominantly in New South Wales and Queensland, although Aborigines claim to have known about it for a lot longer. At the turn of the century, 2 men said that they had shot at a hairy man-beast that had bellowed at them as it emerged from some bushes, and in 1912 the Sydney Morning Herald published an account of the sighting by George Summerhill when he claimed to have seen one drinking at a creek near Bimboka, New South Wales. His story was backed up by the discovery of a distinctive 4-toed footprints at the creek. So can we actually look at that thing over there? No. Or maybe not. What happens if we go around to the side? No, it's just a weird thing. Got some big stone balls here. Hope you like balls. Look at that man with his balls. When the United Fruit Company decided to clear large expanses of jungle in the Diqui Delta, they had no idea that they were about to be responsible for the discovery of some of the most puzzling objects ever found. Las Bolas Grandes, or the giant balls of Costa Rica. Since the 1930s, when the clearing began, hundreds or possibly thousands of stone balls, many perfectly round, have been discovered, ranging from a few inches to 8 foot in diameter and weighing up to 16 tons. Whatever the reason for their manufacture, it must have been very important, as the amount of work involved in shaping these balls from hard granite and rubbing them smooth was truly great. The simple fact is that nobody really has any idea why they were made, although almost inevitably there are theories that they may have been used as models of the solar system. Sadly, most of them these days are used as glorified garden ornaments, a purpose for which they most definitely weren't intended all those years ago. I mean, sometimes you just got to rub some balls. Filth, utter filth. What do you mean, Stardrop? I'm just talking about balls. And there's one thing here. A trident. The legend of the Jersey Devil is a bizarre and old one, dating back to the 18th century. Over the years, the descriptions of it have changed quite considerably, but it started out as a weird conglomeration of animals, consisting of the wings of a bird, the head of a ram, and a set of cloven hooves. The alternative name by which it is sometimes known, the Leeds Devil, refers back to the 1730s, when there was a tale of a devil child being born to a Mrs. Leeds. The result of her 13th pregnancy, it was said to have escaped by her chimney. It probably became most famous during 1909, when it was said to have been seen in over 30 towns. John McCohen saw it and described it as being like a hopping eagle, and patrolman James Sackville told of its terrible scream, often said to resemble that of a human. Several sets of hoof prints were spotted in the snow, leading to many hunting parties being formed, but none were successful in tracking the beast down. There have been several alleged sightings of it over the years, many bearing such little resemblance to the earlier sightings that it would appear that the name of the Jersey Devil is used to account for any unusual happenings in the region. 9th and Arch Museum. Caught and here, alive. The Leeds Devil. Captured Friday after a terrific struggle. Exhibited exclusively here at $1,000 a week. The fearful, frightful, ferocious monster which has been terrifying 2 states. Swims, flies, gallops. Exhibited securely chained in a massive steel cage. A living dragon, more fearsome than the fabled monsters of mythology. Don't miss the sight of a lifetime. Big string of sensations in Curio Hall Theatre. Grand continuous vaudeville. 10 cents admits to all. No, don't leave this area. No, I want to leave. I can't get out. We're trapped here with the Jersey Devil. Come on. Normally, there we go. We just need to do some animation, I guess. Normally the negative magnification cursor gets us out, but that one was sort of bringing us back in. So let's see what's down here. Oh, we have to open it up again. Okay, cool. Oh, more underground secret tunnels. Secret tunnel. Secret tunnel. Looks like this is the same sort of door that we found in the main area. Ah, it is. It's taken us around in a big loop. It's closed behind us. Was this the door opposite to the fish room? Yes, looks like. Okay, so that's taken us in a loop. And let's look at the map. There we go. We were in the main hallway. And then we went up here to Here Lies Monsters. It doesn't look like we've actually got access to this cryogenic chamber. But I think this one was called Arena of the Gods. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the maze, because there is an actual maze that, like, you do a little mini-game for. I could go for a little bit longer. Like, it feels like maybe dividing things up by number of doors opened on that main corridor could be a good idea. But I think there's a lot of extra content to see. So what if we go down this corridor, the windowed corridor, and there's a puzzle at the end that I have to go through to unlock the next area. So we'll do that much at least. I think that could work out well. Bit more reading and a puzzle, and we'll wrap things up then. Oh, this one. So this is fun. If you look behind us, like, there's stuff on the sides of the corridor, but behind us there's actually another little secret thing to find. Esther Cox, you are mine to kill. There goes Puppy Cam 2. Oh well. Puppy is not on camera right now. In 1878, an ordinary shoemaker's cottage in Amherst, Nova Scotia. Why is it always Nova Scotia? Became the setting for one of the most unsettling poltergeist stories ever told. The cottage belonged to Daniel Teed, but it was his sister-in-law, Esther Cox, who was at the center of the supernatural happenings. The eerie events started late one night, soon after an admirer had tried to sexually assault her at gunpoint. While sleeping near her younger sister, she was suddenly flung across the room by an unseen force, her body ballooning up to an enormous size, and her face became a red, swollen mask, with eyes bulging nearly out of her skull. Then, as her hair stood on end, charged with supernatural electricity, there was a series of terrifying loud bangs, and she returned to normal. This was to happen several times in future weeks, along with other frightening poltergeist activities, the most chilling of all being the appearance of ghostly writing on the wall telling her, "Esther Cox, you are mine to kill." The local doctor, named Karit, came to examine her and eventually became able to communicate with the spirits through a series of rappings. No, not that kind of rapping. I think it's talking about knocking on walls and things. Probably. He suggested that she leave the house for a while, which she did, and all became calm. When she returned, however, the activities resumed with a vengeance, with mysteriously levitating matches trying to set the cottage alight. This was the last straw, and she was ordered to leave the house for good, but the frightening occurrences followed her wherever she went. Several people witnessed furniture moving at a restaurant where she went to work, and the door of a stove even threw itself off its hinges when she tried to close it. An attempt to harness her powers in a stage show proved largely unsuccessful due to her inability to make these bizarre occurrences happen at will, but not before a knife had sprung from a child in the audience and stabbed her. Children in those days often carrying knives. Her life was not to get any better in the future, and she even ended up behind bars for some time, charged with setting a barn alight. She could never escape the spirits that seemed to curse her. Psychical researcher G.W. Lambert later attributed the events at Amherst to the tidal behavior in the nearby Bay of Sunday, as he had discovered that almost half the cases of poltergeist activity that he had investigated were near tidal water. Ah, yes. Of course. So what did cause the tragic events that were to ruin Esther's life? Tidal water, trickery, or evil spirits? Nobody knows for sure. Nope, I don't want to open the door. I want to go away. That way. Let's go down the right-hand side first and come back on the left. There. Hi. Nice. Very pretty. The others less so. You just don't expect to see mermaids, do you? I mean, surely they were just creatures of myth like unicorns and trolls and little goblins, never really meant to be taken seriously. That seems to be the general impression that people have of mermaids today, but that was not always the case, and some still believe that there may really have been such creatures. There have certainly been enough sightings over the centuries to justify a more open mind. The traditional mermaid is generally portrayed as a beautiful woman from head to waist, sometimes with hair of green seaweed, and from the waist down has the body of a fish down to its tail. Legend usually tells of them carrying a mirror and comb, the mirror being a symbol of their association with the moon, the comb being something they can comb their hair with. They were not known as benign creatures as they usually would be said to lure sailors to a watery death in a siren-like manner, and were often seen as a sign of ill omen. Many countries have their own versions of mermaids. Germany has the Nixies, which were believed to be capable of taking the form of old women to travel on land. Brittany had a particularly dangerous breed they call Morgans, and Finland had the intriguing Naki, who had white bodies and breasts so long that they could throw them over their shoulders. These, though, are probably more myth than reality, but what of supposedly genuine sightings? A mermaid was said to have been captured at Edam, Holland, in 1403, living for 15 years at Haarlem before dying and being given a Christian burial. And in 1560, fishermen in what was then known as Ceylon claimed to have caught and dissected several of them. One of the most credible descriptions, however, came from respected explorer Henry Hudson's log in 1608. He was sailing near Novaya Zemlya, north of Russia, when his men saw some mermaids, describing one as, "From the navel upwards, her back and breasts were like a woman's. Her body as big as one of us. Her skin very white, and long hair hanging down behind of colour black. In her going down they saw her tail, which was like a tail of a porpoise, and speckled like a mackerel." Hudson was just one of the many explorers to refer to such sightings, Christopher Columbus being another notable example who claimed to have seen 3 of them near Guiana. Such was the level of belief in mermaids in the 18th century that in 1723 a royal commission was set up by Denmark to examine the phenomenon. To everyone's astonishment, they actually found one. Well, nearly. They actually discovered a merman, the male of the species, sporting a long black beard, which surfaced just to the side of their boat. The Amboina district of Borneo became the center of much mermaid activity over 200 years ago, when 50 people witnessed one swimming with its mate. On another occasion, one was actually captured, but died after only 4 days in captivity. It was said to be 59 inches long and spent its captivity in a water-filled barrel. An illustration of this particular mermaid, supposedly drawn from life, was published in 1717. The 19th century was the peak period in interest in mermaids, with numerous sightings. In 1809, the London Times carried a letter from a teacher who claimed that while he was walking along the shore at Sandside Head, Scotland, he saw a ruddy-faced mermaid, in true tradition combing its hair. He stated that many other people in those parts had claimed to have seen it. In 1830, the Hebrides played host to an encounter when the people of Benebecula saw a young specimen at sea. She eluded the attempts of the local men to catch her, but was discovered dead some days later, washed up on the shore, having been hit by a stone thrown by a young boy during the earlier sighting. A crowd gathered to witness the amazing scene where, after a close examination, the poor mermaid was laid to rest. It was described as having the body of a 3 or 4 year old girl, with the exception of large breasts, but with the lower body like a salmon, but, curiously, without scales. The Hebrides was to become the scene for yet another sighting in 1947, when a fisherman believed he saw another example in the act of combing her hair. This interest in mermaids has been heightened by many examples purporting to be genuine of mermaids being put on display or touring in shows. As early as 1565, a mermaid skin was exhibited at the Red Sea port of Thora, and, in 1795, a queen of the sea fishes that had been caught in the Gulf of Stancio was displayed in the Spring Gardens in London. It was said to be 3 feet long, with a woman's body down to the waist, with the bottom half being that of a fish. Famous American showman P.T. Barnum had seen a sorry-looking specimen on display in the Turf Coffee House, London, and subsequently brought it up and included it in his show, though his publicity posters depicting 3 beautiful frolicking mermaids bore little resemblance to the ugly object itself. This Fiji mermaid originally bought for the huge sum of $5,000 in Java, in belief that it had been caught by a Chinese fisherman, went on to be exhibited at the American Museum, where a poster stated that it had been seen by hundreds of naturalists and other scientific persons whose doubts regarding the existence of such an extraordinary creation had been entirely removed. This wasn't exactly the truth, as experts that examined it proclaimed it to be made from an orangutan and a salmon.
I've examined a number of fake mermaids, some of them with X-ray, and know some of the details of how they are constructed. They seem to be based on a wooden core, and there's probably papier-mâché or cloth, probably impregnated with resin, moulded at the front end. A little bit of wire supporting the fingers. But many of the details will only be revealed when we actually take one to pieces. And I have a specimen which I would like to do that with sometime, and that probably will give a lot of clues about the method of manufacture and possibly even the place of manufacture. I've also seen a superb specimen in a private collection in England, larger than the others, obviously a professional taxidermist's job, not just some native workmanship, which is so superbly made, even with shoulder blades, the features looking very human, and I've examined this under a lens. I can't even see the join. I suspect that the back of it is made not from fish skin, but from snake skin, but beyond that I'm still baffled as to how that one has been put together.
That one was quite long. If the others are similarly long, maybe we'll just do half of the corridor. Professor Hans Bender of Freiburg's Institute of Paranormal Research uncovered a chilling letter which he stated was written in 1914 by a Bavarian soldier named Andreas Rill. The letter transcribed a prediction made by a Frenchman that World War I would end in defeat for Germany, resulting in revolution, inflation, and the rise to power of a man who would lead to another war in 1939, only to end in another defeat for Germany in 1945. Don't panic, but he also predicted another world war involving China before 2000 AD. Okay, that one was a lot shorter. I feel more confident that we can do the whole corridor here. Oh wait, hang on, let's go back. There's little details that you can miss, like the scrolling on the back of the door there. And up here, I believe... yeah, there's a chain hanging in the middle of the corridor. Spooky! Metalwork! Ooh. Stories abound of the premonitory dreams that President Lincoln had of his impending death. It is said that one night shortly before his assassination, he dreamt that he was standing at the foot of a body lying in state, but could not see who. He inquired as to the identity of the corpse, only to be told that it was the president who had been assassinated. It has also been said that on the very morning of his death, he dreamt of taking a journey on a ship with no destination. His ghostly presence in the White House has supposedly been seen or felt by no lesser figures than Presidents Roosevelt, Eisenhower, and Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands.
Everyone knows about reincarnation, where a departed soul returns in the body of a new life, rather like some spiritual revolving door. But a somewhat less well-known phenomenon is that of the transmigration of the soul, where a departed spirit returns in the body of someone who has just died. An interesting example of this occurred in 1985, when a girl named Sumitra died, only to return to life with a completely new identity, that of a girl insisting that her name was not Sumitra at all, but Shiva. She claimed to have no memory of her life as Sumitra or her family, but could clearly recollect the life and family of the girl named Shiva who, it transpired, had died 2 months earlier. As if her knowledge of Shiva's friends, family and life in general were not proof enough, she also revealed aspects of her death that only the police knew, and even more amazingly, wrote using Shiva's handwriting. A feat made even more remarkable by the fact that Sumitra, whose body she now inhabited, could not write at all. The question remains, however, as to the fate of Sumitra's soul.
Spooky. Oh, we've got bonus content here.
The more I study reincarnation, the more I realize that you can't generalize. The periods between death and rebirth vary enormously from case to case. And in fact, it isn't even necessary for a person to be reborn into a body while it's still an embryo. There are some cases where an individual lives a normal life to a certain age and then suddenly their personality changes completely. One case I read about recently concerned a woman in India who just woke up one day and she was a different person speaking Bengali, which was not the language she would normally be speaking, and nor was it a language any of the villagers understood, and they had to wait quite a long time before they could find a Bengali speaking person to come and find out what she was saying. When they spoke to her, it transpired she was now remembering a life in the 19th century when she died from a snake bite. So she seems to have been in some limbo for quite a long time, and then suddenly, for reasons I can't explain, just turned up into the body of this woman who I can only imagine perhaps died that night, nobody realized, but was a nice warm body to reincarnate in.
It is kind of interesting that a lot of those things sound like they would be difficult to forge. Oh, that's right, we're doing this side first. Tea! Okay, I needed to click on something else there. It's not just tea. Tea isn't just mysterious by itself, there's something else. Mrs. Paquette, it's pronounced Paquet, just could not shake off the unnatural sense of foreboding that had enveloped her since she awoke. Tea, she thought. That might help, and scuttled off to the pantry. Only it didn't, for there in the pantry was the image of her brother, Ed, toppling over the side of the tugboat on which he worked. She had barely time to ponder on the bizarre reenactment in her pantry before the reason for her disturbing vision became apparent. News reached her that her brother Ed had fallen from a tugboat in Chicago Harbor and drowned 6 hours earlier. Well, that's ruddy mysterious. Hey, Old School J. Welcome on in. How are you doing? In 1969, nice, Eino Seppi, a farmer in Finland, was astonished to find a dried fish over 40 centimeters long embedded in the center of a log he was cutting. This is reminiscent of the story of the Bournemouth woman who discovered a 10-inch long carp in the soot of her chimney. Doing good. Good to hear. I'm just about running out of steam for today, I think. This one has been talking heavily. I guess I wasn't following you somehow. I was wondering on how I never saw you when you were fixed. Oh, thank you. Follows on Twitch are weird. It's, yeah. A pantry received CNN, yeah. Or, I mean, an alternative explanation for Mrs. Packett's vision could be that she just said she had a vision of it 6 hours prior, or to the death of her husband. How's this been? I like the music. It's good. It's, you know, like it's your typical 90s era CD-ROM multimedia experience. There's little bits of dialogue voiceovers, which unfortunately don't come with subtitles, and they can be a bit hard to hear sometimes. I've got it pumped up to the maximum volume I can. And there's, you know, your tiny little bits of FMV video. It's pretty cool. Like, it's like you've taken an encarta of assorted weird stories, some of them slightly more believable than others, and mashed it together with Mist. And I got it off. Let me just tab out. I got it off. Where's my damn cameras? I got it off the PC format cover disc back in the day, and I held on to this one at least. I've lost a whole lot of my old cover discs and cover floppies. But yeah, it's PC format presents Weird. Close Encounters of the Weird Kind. Is there anybody out there? Discover the truth behind the real X-Files with this complete guide to Fortean phenomena. Free, full multimedia encyclopedia of the strange. Nice, I had a few issues of PC Format. It was hard to find over here, but seemed like a great mag in its era. It was great. The ones that I have are all from the UK when I grew up there. So obviously I left a lot of them behind when I moved here. It was also published down under here for a bit, and I think I did pick up a few episodes, a few issues, before they stopped printing, or, you know, after a while, PC magazines started to become like 50% adverts, and people would just pick them up for the cover disc of some useful shareware that, like, they didn't want to bother downloading. Yeah. It's a lost art form, I think. People curating floppy disks and CD-ROMs of cool games and other software applications. Go back to... When I was about 13, I was looking at werewolves online. My dad came home, and I suddenly turned off my monitor because I was embarrassed to be looking up werewolves. So he went into my browser history, clearly expecting something else. I lost all my old PC mags in a basement flood in 2005. Oh, that sucks. I had the complete run of US PC Gamer and Computer Gaming World from 1995 to 98-ish, and a lot of other miscellaneous ones. Oh, it's sad. The Internet Archive has managed to preserve a fair bunch of things, and I'm gonna have to check to see if the Internet Archive actually has this. And if it doesn't, I'm gonna have to dig up my scanner and get it working again and scan the cover art. I already made an ISO of this so that I could play it. CGW is 100% preserved, but a lot of PC Gamer is missing, yeah. I just wish I hadn't thrown out all the floppies, man. There was some really good stuff on there. But yeah, just the fact that you kind of have to explore this virtual 3D space and identify things to unlock little snippets of stuff makes it that much more entertaining. Even if the thing that you unlock is just, this guy saw a ghost once, isn't that spooky? It's cool. And they've put a lot of effort into the artwork. It's lovely. On October 21st, 1966, an avalanche of coal caused by incessant rain tumbled down a mountain and engulfed a school at Aberfan in Wales, killing 144 people, mostly schoolchildren. Apart from the unusual manner of the disaster itself, what was particularly strange about this tragic event was the amount of people believed to have foreseen it. In Plymouth, England, for example, a woman told 6 witnesses the day before the disaster that whilst in a trance, she had seen an avalanche of coal sliding towards a child in a Welsh village. Dr. J.C. Barker and Peter Fairley were so fascinated by these reports that they appealed in the Evening Standard for anyone claiming to have foreseen this disaster to contact them. So overwhelmed were they by the response, over 20 cases being subsequently confirmed by other witnesses, that they set up the British Premonitions Bureau to try and avert such disasters in the future. Most poignant of all the premonitions, however, came from a 9-year-old girl, Errol Mai Jones. She woke in the middle of the previous night, startled by a vivid dream. In the morning, she told her mother of how, according to this dream, she had gone to her school, but the school was no longer there. Something black had come down all over it. She went to school that morning never to return, for it was her school, the Pantglas Junior School, that was destroyed, and she was to become one of the victims. Hey, Applejacks. We meet again in another chat. Yeah. No audio, but I'm here to lurk while I fall asleep. Fair enough, I've been there too. Yeah, me, myself, I have also been trying to drag my sleeping schedule into something resembling normal human daytime activity, with mixed results. Weird noises. Blended Scotch whiskey. One of the strangest creatures that has ever been said to exist must surely be the wild beast of Barnsdale. It's claimed that in 1980, a crofter on the edge of Loch Horn, Scotland, saw it scampering towards him. Scampering may well be the best word to use, as it was said that the beast had 2 legs at the front, but just 1 at the back, and wings. Local legend suggested that it was equally comfortable on either land or water. I don't know what's happening in this game, but it looks like a fever dream. Kind of. Okay. What's this? Reward. $50,000. When Sandra Mancy went to spend the day at Lake Champlain, a 109-mile-long lake on the border between Canada and the United States, with her fiancé and children, she expected a pleasant, quiet time, soaking up the grandeur of that tranquil beauty spot. What she didn't expect was to be greeted by a vision that was to affect the rest of her life. It was 1977, and she was sitting on a rock by the shore of the north end of the lake, when she saw something stirring in the water ahead. At first she thought it was a school of fish, but then, rising almost gracefully out of the water, came a large head, followed by a long neck, reminiscent of a dinosaur. She knew she had just encountered Champ, the legendary beast of Lake Champlain. Her fiancé grabbed the children and gathered them away from the water's edge, fearing for their safety, but Sandra Mancy grabbed the camera and took a shot just before the creature disappeared back under the water. The photo was to become famous as the best evidence of the existence of Champ, although at first she was reticent to show it to anyone destroying the negative for fear of ridicule, an act that was to arouse much suspicion amongst skeptics. It was 2 years later that the picture finally reached the experts at the University of Arizona for inspection, but after careful analysis, they declared the photo to be genuine. This was just one of the many reported sightings of the creature since Samuel de Champlain discovered the lake back in 1609 and claimed he saw a strange beast. Experts suggest that he may actually have seen a garfish. In 1819, some settlers and a boatman claimed to have seen a long, worm-like beast with several humps. In the 1870s, there was a further spate of sightings, which led famous showman P.T. Barnum to put a reward of $50,000 on its head. Much as he would have loved to have exhibited such a monster in his show, nobody succeeded in claiming the massive bounty. The best view of Champ, though, must surely have been gone to Captain Nathan Mooney, the sheriff of Clinton County, in 1883, when he saw the 25 feet long creature rise out of the water in front of him, so close that he could actually see the white spots inside the beast's mouth. Good night, Applejacks. Alright, so it's 6:41. I am running out of being able to talk and stuff and good. Yeah, I don't want to stress my voice out too much. So there's a whole extra side of this corridor that we haven't seen yet. And then many more areas to come. We are here. Oh cool, you can mouse over all of these things. We're slowly unlocking things you can just directly jump to in the menu here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to save. I mean, I may as well save not in the Windows directory. Why do I have a Win98 and a Windows directory? It's fine, we'll just save it here. You're going to be so happy to get to Ultima 9 just so you don't have to read dialogue. Oh, there's still going to be books. But yeah, at least Ultima 9, it's got dialogue, but it also has subtitles for the dialogue. It's so annoying when, like, a lot of the point-and-click adventure games, when they added the talking version for the CD-ROMs, they removed the subtitles, because why would you need the subtitles? We can play voice now. I'm just gonna go see who might be streaming. One day, soon-ish, maybe, perhaps, I'm going to build myself a custom raiding out scene. Tempting, but we've got to go with our mate Sonneveld, really. Yeah, let's see what Sonneveld's up to. And then I can go set my dinner up and relax.
Himbo, I prefer...
No, none of that. Himbo? What? Shadowgate 64, warm up with Forever Furries. Nice. Australian carpet cleaning. Top job every time. So yes, let's go say hi. It's Sonneveld. Everyone knows Sonneveld. If you get left behind, there's a link for you to click on in the chat. And copy my own damn raid message. Thank you, Neko. There we go. So, yes. Thank you for joining me in this weird and wonderful adventure into 1990s interactive CD-ROM technology. Yeah, it's another one that I've been heavily nostalgic for, and I'm happy that I managed to finally set it up. I ended up having to go with emulated Windows 98 in QEMU, because although I did get the Windows 3.1 version running in DOSBox, the quality of the video was just really, really crap. I figured the Windows 95 version was the way to go here. And like for some reason, Wine wasn't having any of it. It does some sort of like startup test initially, and it's depending on a really ancient version of DirectX. Yeah, full-on emulation was the only way to go here. That was interesting. I want to see more of this. Yeah, so, Old School J. I found it really interesting, and it's really cool. Come back here next Wednesday. Maybe I'll start again at 4 p.m. I'm not really setting the time slot of this one in stone or anything, because I wanted to vary it up a bit. My usual streaming time is Mondays at 7 p.m. Australia Sydney time, which is 9 a.m. UTC at the moment. And for this one, I wanted to vary it up a bit to see, like, maybe we can catch some people who can't normally make it to the stream. I know, like, for the Americans, it's quite late for catching my weird Aussie streams. So, yeah, 4 p.m. Sydney time, 6 a.m. UTC. I've posted in the Discord a bunch of other channels, and on Twitter, Mastodon. There's the Discord link if you want. Shedford Hollow, I share it with a bunch of other nice, cozy streamers. Not exclusively focused on retro. They do a lot of Sims playthroughs and things like that. Stardew Valley. It's just a nice place to hang out. And I like sharing a Discord because it means I don't have to do the whole Discord thing just by myself. Your weird Aussie streams or your weird Aussie streams? Yes, Stardrop. Yes. I've got the Twitters. I should really add Mastodon to that, because I really don't follow Twitter too much these days. But yeah, I'll try and post my go lives there. And I will see you next time, whenever that is. Little Kitty Big City is coming out in 2 days, and I might well just be tempted to stream that too, but 3 streams in 1 week seems like a lot. Ooh, Australian politics shitposting, yes, a lot of that. Well, during an election season anyway. Yeah, that's all. Thanks everyone for being here. Take care of yourselves. I will see you next time. Let's go say hi to Sonneveld. He's a lovely chap. Streams retro games. Take care.